I was awake before dawn, the world still wrapped in shadows, when the sound of helicopters split the silence. The buzzing whir grew closer, sharper, until the vibration rattled the glass of my window. I didn't need the news feed to know what was happening. 5 coordinated strikes, 5 locations, one man at the center of it all. The Diddler, the richest, loudest, most flamboyant black man in America. Rap mogul, fashion king, liquor baron, the man who could summon A-listers with a snap of his finger, a man who thought himself untouchable. But this morning, the Bureau came to remind him, even kings fall. I pulled on a dark hoodie and lit a cigarette, staring out across Miami. From my vantage, I saw the flashing red and blue convoys sweep down Collins Avenue. Tactical vans, armored trucks, SUVs blacker than midnight. They split off like veins, each artery rushing toward a different Didler-owned property. The FBI wasn't playing around. Los Angeles Hillside Mansion reports came in through my encrypted line. West Coast first. FBI hostage rescue team breached a sprawling hillside mansion above LA. Smoke charges rolled under the door. Glass shattered. Alarms screamed. Inside, servants scattered like ants. One of the Didler mistresses, curves poured into a silk robe, was dragged out, kicking and spitting. Neighbors filmed from their balconies, whispering like they were watching a movie scene unfold. They had no idea this was real life. Agents kicked in doors, sweeping corridors stacked with designer luggage and mink coats. Hidden rooms revealed safes stuffed with cash. Bundles stacked so high, the feds had to photograph each crate before they touched it. New York penthouse. Simultaneously, Manhattan dot the Didler high-rise penthouse on 57th Street, the kind with ceilings that disappear into the clouds. The elevator was locked down, so the team came through the stairwell, rifles at the ready. Neighbors cracked their doors to peek, only to have laser sights flash across their foreheads until they ducked back. When the feds breached, they found a private club set up. Velvet couches, mirrored walls, and a stage with a pole in the center. Naked photos littered the walls, Polaroids of nameless women taped like trophies. His personal chef was caught mid-chop, knife in hand, trembling as agents pinned him down. The penthouse staff looked terrified. They'd heard rumors. They'd seen things, but nobody dared to speak. Until now. Atlanta condo. Atlanta was messier. The Diddler kept a condo there for business trips. Locals knew it as a crash pad for his entourage. When the feds stormed it, half the crew was still high. Coke dust on the coffee table, bottles spilling across the floor. The door splintered open, agents shouting commands. Some fools tried flushing bricks of powder down the toilet. Others ran barefoot across the parking lot, boxers sagging while neighbors screamed. One man leapt from the balcony, breaking his leg on the asphalt. His howls mixed with sirens. The condo itself was drenched in neon lights, plasma screens looping Didler's music videos. Narcotics, unregistered weapons, bags of cash, and a drawer full of fake IDs. Every drawer they opened screamed, indictment. Vegas suite. Vegas was a palace inside the Bellagio, an entire floor rented out, decorated with gold-trimmed furniture and leather that stank of cigars and perfume. The feds came in with battering rams. Security guards tried to resist, but were instantly floored. Inside, women in lingerie scattered. Champagne still bubbled in the flutes on the glass table. Agents stormed the master suite, where the 4 Didler lieutenant in bed with 2 models, a pistol on the nightstand. He didn't even reach for it, just raised his hands, face pale, sweat dripping. The safe in that suite held stacks of passports, hard drives, and contracts, documents tying Didler empire to offshore accounts in places most Americans couldn't even spell. Miami Mansion. But the crown jewel was here, his Miami fortress, a mansion sprawling across Biscayne Bay. Palms swayed in the salty breeze as the FBI stormed the gates. Helicopters hovered overhead. Boats circled the docks. There was no escape. This one mattered because this was where his children slept. The Didler kids, spoiled, confused, eyes wide with terror as tactical agents dragged them into the yard. Nannies clutched them tight, shielding them from rifles and flashbang smoke. Inside the mansion, the discoveries were grotesque. Closet after closet lined with silk ropes, restraints, and racks of sex toys. Tubs of baby oil stacked like soda in a corner. And then the tapes, hundreds of them. VHS, DVDs, hard drives, labeled with initials, hotel room numbers, dates, evidence that could bury a dynasty. The agents moved slowly, methodically, every face grim. Even hardened veterans looked sick as they cataloged what they found. I inhaled smoke deep into my lungs and let it burn. The whole empire was crumbling, lived before my eyes. But I wasn't just a spectator. I was a player in this theater. Because weeks earlier, before the raids, before the headlines, I had received the message. A cryptic audio file sent through layers of encryption. A distorted voice, male, low-pitched, mechanical. Aiden, we have a contract. The Didler, richest black man in America. Target, eliminate. That was it. No price mentioned, no meeting place, just a contract. The ultimate commission handed to the number one assassin in the world, me. I wasn't born for this life. I carved it. Poor boy from Spanish Town, Jamaica. Father gone, mother struggling, streets teaching me lessons faster than books ever could. But books mattered too. I was a genius at patterns, psychology, the art of knowing how people move before they even decide to move. That skill carried me across oceans. It made me indispensable to the cartels. Logistics, routes, timing. I could move 1,500 keys of pure cocaine through customs like it was a bag of rice. Until the feds caught me, I should have rotted in a cell forever. But the Bureau made a deal. Work for us, help us track terrorists, provide your skills, and we'll look the other way. So here I was, ghost between two worlds, still serving the cartel, still obeying the feds, still free, but never safe. And now, staring at the flashing lights across Biscayne, I realized something. This wasn't just a contract. This was destiny calling. Because the Didler wasn't just another target. He was the embodiment of everything rotten in the empire of fame, money, and power. And if I could take him down, I'd be carving my name into history. The raids were only the beginning. I flicked my cigarette, crushed it beneath my boot, and whispered to the night, "All right then, Didler, the hunt start now." 2. The San Diego file. I always start with the past. If you want to break a man, you don't go for his money. Men like the Didler have oceans of it. Money that can be laundered, hidden, reborn. You go for the pattern. The moments he couldn't control himself. The slips of rage, lust, greed. Patterns never lie. And the Didler had patterns like a snake sheds skin. I cracked into the FBI's internal archives using the access they loaned me for counter-terror ops. My handler thought I was tracing a cell in Tijuana. Instead, I typed a single name, Didler, Marcus Anthony. The file was a monster. Thousands of pages, years of reports, sealed court records, surveillance logs, but one section burned brighter than all. San Diego, 2017, a hotel suite, a girlfriend named Celine Morales, half Puerto Rican, half Filipino, model turned actress, at the time, the Didler Public Trophy. Celine grew up in the Bronx, father Filipino, mother Puerto Rican. The father vanished before her second birthday. His absence carved a wound that never closed. Her mother worked cleaning offices, hustling double shifts, raising her alone. But rent was always late, bills always looming. And when the money dried up, men came through. Boyfriends who stayed long enough to eat, then disappeared. Celine learned the equation young. Men left, but before they left, they bought. Love was fleeting, but desire could keep the lights on. She grew up watching her mother trade affection for survival. Behind thin walls, she heard the deals play out. Moans for rent money, kisses for groceries. Celine didn't understand the words, but she understood the math. Sex equaled stability. By adolescence, she was repeating the cycle. She mistook desire for love. Every boy who touched her became, for a night, a stand-in for the father who never came home. When they vanished by morning, she didn't blame them. She blamed herself. So she gave more, over and over. By 18, she was breathtaking, cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass, hair like obsidian, a smile radiant enough to sell perfume to wolves. Modeling agencies snapped her up. She walked runways, appeared in commercials, slipped into magazines. But success only amplified the wound. Her addiction wasn't to sex itself. It was to validation. She was always hungry for someone to stay, for someone to prove she was enough. That's when Didler found her. At a New York party in 2007, he spotted her, barely 20. Hunger still raw in her eyes. He didn't seduce her with flowers. He seduced her with power. Stick with me, he whispered that first night. You'll never be alone again. For a woman like Celine, those words were gospel. She'd been abandoned by her father, exploited by lovers, dismissed by agents. Now the richest black mogul in America was promising permanence. To her, it sounded like salvation. She became his girlfriend, publicly his trophy, privately his prisoner. For 10 years, she orbited him like a moon around a burning sun. At first, the lifestyle dazzled her. Private jets, designer dresses, villas across the world. But behind closed doors, the cycle replayed. Rage control, apologies dripping with diamonds. Every time he struck her, every time he demeaned her, she confused the apology after as love. Because that was the only love she had ever known. Violence followed by crumbs of affection. She had cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass and a voice sweet enough to sell perfume to wolves. But that night, witnesses in the suite next door called hotel security for sounds of screaming. When security arrived, Celine was face down on the floor, blood dripping from her lip, eyes swollen shut. Didler stood over her, shirt ripped, knuckles raw. She didn't press charges. Of course not. A week later, she was photographed on a yacht in Cabo, sunglasses hiding the bruises. When reporters asked, she said, I walked into a door. The report included hotel staff testimony. A maid swore she saw him slam her head against the wall. A bellhop said he heard him shout, "You'll never leave me, bitch. I own you." It never made it to court. Lawyers smothered it with NDAs and cash. The FBI file marked it as incidental, no federal jurisdiction, buried like bones under a mansion. But me, I dig up bones. The streets talk louder than files. I hit the Miami underbelly, strip clubs, barbershops, corner dice games, places where Didler's name was whispered with respect and venom. Rumors flowed like liquor. He beat another girlfriend in New York. This one threw herself off a balcony to escape. He had girls flown in from Eastern Europe, modeling contracts that were really cages. He paid off families in Atlanta when a 17-year-old disappeared after one of his parties. Everybody knew something. Nobody had proof. That was the genius of the Diddler. He wrapped sin in luxury, abuse in champagne foam. But I was patient. Patient men catch ghosts. Psychology. To kill a man clean, you need more than a bullet. You need to break his mind first. I built psychological profiles like chessboards. The Diddler was easy to read. Born in Detroit, single mother, hustled mixtapes out his trunk until he hit platinum. His music was loud, vulgar, brash. But underneath it, the boy who grew up with nothing still screamed for validation. That's why he surrounded himself with women. Not just beauty, submission. He fed on control. His weakness wasn't money or fame. His weakness was the fear of being laughed at. He could handle being hated, but humiliation, exposure, that would kill him before I even raised my weapon. The San Diego lad. I tracked down Celine Morales. She'd vanished from Hollywood after her relationship with Drooler, resurfacing in a dusty little town outside Santa Fe. I found her sipping wine in a half-empty bar, sunglasses still on indoors, her once bright face dimmed. I slid into the stool beside her, my voice calm, Jamaican lilt softened. You don't know me, but I know you survived something, and I know who did it. Her hand froze on the glass. For a moment, silence. Then she laughed, bitter, sharp. You one of those reporters? Bloggers? No, I'm the one who makes sure men like him don't breathe easy forever. Her lip trembled. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and whispered, he almost killed me. You don't understand. He tied me up, said he'd leave me for dead in that suite. His people told me if I spoke, my mother in Puerto Rico would disappear. Her voice cracked. Tears slid from beneath the shades. She wasn't lying. Trauma lives in the pupils. She didn't give me evidence. She gave me resolve. That night, I went back to my safe house. Adoria was waiting. Adoria, my secret sin. Plush black cat of a woman. Born in America, but with Jamaican fire in her blood. Blue eyes that mocked, teased, seduced all at once. By day, she ran a boutique fashion line. By night, she was mine. She stretched across my sheets, silk robe falling from her shoulder. You went digging again, she murmured, voice smooth as cognac. I can smell blood on you, Aiden. I dropped beside her, tension melting under her touch. Her nails grazed my chest, dragging down slow. You can't save every broken woman, she teased. You can't fix the world. The FBI's San Diego file captured only one night, but I knew better. That wasn't an anomaly. That was the iceberg. No, I whispered, gripping her waist, pulling her closer. But I can destroy the men who break them. She kissed me hard, and for hours, I forgot the world. Our sex was frantic, desperate, the kind that made you feel alive even as you danced with death. But in the quiet after, as her head rested on my chest, my mind spun back to the Diddler, his empire, his crimes, his arrogance. Step 6, the contract echo. I played the cryptic message again before sleep. Aiden, the Diddler eliminate. Only this time I heard more. A faint hum in the background. Machinery? A train station? Maybe a clue to who sent it. But I didn't chase shadows yet. First, I had to dismantle the man at the center. The feds raided his homes, yes, but raids don't topple empires. They scratch the surface. I would go deeper, find the rot, drag it to light, because only then, when the Diddler was naked before the world, would I strike the final blow. I lay awake in the dark, Adoria breathing softly beside me, my mind racing, my pulse steady. Tomorrow, I would pull the next thread. Tomorrow, I would make the Diddler choke on his own secrets. Sequence 3, Threads of Darkness. I follow the shadows, not the spotlight. The Diddler reign wasn't built solely on beats and brands. It was supported by an underground infrastructure he believed stayed hidden. But infrastructure always leaves traces. Step 1. The trafficking whispers. I began at the fringes, rumors, scraps of conversations, half-heard names in back rooms. Contacts from my logistics days whispered of private jets landing in obscure airstrips outside Miami. Women, sometimes girls, stepping off in dresses too long for subtropical nights. Police reports marked missing persons, but never connected the dots. I fed the name Didler into my encrypted networks, pulling data from digital crumbs, hotel bookings under shell companies, odd expenses for luxury rentals, flagged credit card transactions. Most were generic, but one pattern stood out. Cargo manifests for shipments of body lotion leaving Miami warehouses, destined for LA, Atlanta, Vegas, locations tied to his properties. Obvious, only if you were looking. Step 2, supply chains exposed. Using my cartel logistics credentials, I infiltrated one of his suppliers, an importer dealing in wellness products. Posing as a mid-tier dealer wanting to scale, I gained access to spreadsheets. Among the product listings were massage oil, intimate gel, baby lotion, in pallet quantities. The invoices labeled them innocuously, but the shipping labels told a different story, addresses matching the condos raided months ago. I tracked one specific shipment, pallets bound for a storage facility belonging to one of the Didler ghost corporations. When I cracked the lock and entered, assault-proof security systems and CCTV stared back. Inside, dozens of unmarked crates. I pried one open. Stacks of high-end baby oil branded with the Didler fashion label, a mark of twisted branding, toy cases, and evidence of specialized gear used to control and coerce victims. Step 3, Machiavelli's echo. Then came the whispers about Machiavelli, an iconic rapper whose death years ago shattered the culture. Conspiracy theories painted the Diddler as orchestrator, specifically a murder for hire masked as a shooting. He'd ordered it as retribution when Machiavelli threatened to expose a dark secret trafficking connection. My FBI access gave me security camera footage from around the time. A blurry van pulling up behind Machiavelli's car, a dark blur stepping out, a gunshot. Surveillance ends there. Theater. I heard from someone in the homicide unit that the Didler had called family offering hush money. They refused. The official report closed it as gang crossfire, but nothing in the Didlet realm was accidental. Step 4, recruiting victims. Trafficking isn't arms, it's people. I traced recruitment channels, dark websites boasting modeling gigs in Miami and LA, interviews under bright lights, young women flown in, told they'd star in promos, then trapped. The contracts were unsigned, no lawyers, just promises. Using aliases, I infiltrated one online stream. A recruiter sent me candidate profiles. Some were familiar. Teens from Atlanta disappeared months before. One resume had a Miami mansion address, the one raided. I compiled IP logs, voice samples from video calls, GPS data embedded in photo metadata. Step 5, compiling the chain. I laid it out like a chessboard. Top-tier assets, shipments, and storage linked to the Didler's empire. Recruitment portals, feeding victims into trafficking. Murder whispers, Machiavelli, silenced when he got too close. Hotels and villas, the freak-offs, twisted parties where the powerless were entertainment. Every node connected back to him. The money, the glam, the abuse, all under the same gilded crown. Step 6, the psychological edge. Every criminal has a weakness. For the Didler, it wasn't money. It was image and immunity. His privilege made him crave blind loyalty from the powerful, avoid shame. So I weaponized that. I drafted a dossier, not for the feds, but for the press. Evidence, shipment logs, victim statements, hotel contracts, but unpublished, just enough to leak, just enough to send ripples through the industry and his social circles. I watched his phone lines tingle with panic. Step 7, preparing the strike. I stood back in my safe house, Adoria watching as I mapped prosecutions on the maps. Slivers of anxiety curled in every decision. Because I wasn't killing him, yet. I was exposing him, stripping him of his unthinkable power. And only when he was naked in public, humiliated, with everything he built crumbling, then the bullet would be necessary or optional. Necessary or optional. Adoria leaned against the doorframe, silhouette outlined in lamplight. I looked up. She didn't ask what's next. She only whispered, "You're close." And I was.
Every monster starts as a boy. And if you want to kill a man clean, you don't just aim at his chest. You aim at the boy he used to be. That's where the cracks are. Marcus Anthony Didler was no exception. His empire of shadows, his hunger for control, his obsession with humiliation and power, it all tied back to a handful of wounds carved into him as a kid. The soft boy. Didler grew up in Detroit, raised by a single mother in a neighborhood that worshiped toughness like religion. Muscle, menace, reputation, those were the currencies of the streets. But Marcus wasn't built for that world. As a boy, he was soft-spoken, thin, more interested in sketching sneakers in his notebook than fighting on the corner. Other kids pushed him around. Older boys mocked him. The streets branded him weak. They called him punk. They called him soft. Every insult carved deeper into his psyche, teaching him that weakness was unforgivable. He hated thugs, hated gangsters, not because they scared him, but because they mirrored everything he wasn't. He despised their swagger, their laughter, their ability to control the block. In truth, he envied them. The Big Willie incident. The turning point came at 16. Marcus had his first girlfriend then, Latasha, a girl with sharp eyes and a louder laugh, the kind of girl who could make a boy feel like a man just by choosing him. But in neighborhoods like his, no love stayed pure. One night, he caught her with Big Willie, a local gang leader notorious not just for his violence, but for his anatomy. His name said it all. Marcus walked in on them. Latasha bent across the couch, Willie grinning like a king, claiming a prize. The humiliation didn't stay private. In places like Detroit's West Side, shame travels faster than bullets. By morning, the entire neighborhood knew. Boys laughed in his face, girls whispered behind his back, grown men clapped him on the shoulder and asked if Willie had left him any scraps. He became a joke, a walking punchline. The boy who couldn't keep his girl, the punk who got humiliated. The laughter cut deeper than fists ever could, the seed of the monster. That humiliation never left him. It became the root of everything. Psychologists call it trauma-based compensation. I call it a scar turned into armor. The Didler who rose to power wasn't chasing money or fame for their own sake. He was chasing immunity from laughter, from humiliation, from the echoes of Big Willie's grin burned into his brain. Control became his obsession. If he owned everything.
Patterns of obsession. Every sin he committed later in life traced back to those moments. Women as possessions. He never sought partnership. He sought ownership. If he controlled a woman, dictated her clothes, her movements, her silence, then no Willie could ever take her from him. Every girlfriend, every mistress, every model flown into his mansion became less of a lover and more of a hostage. He fed on submission because it erased the boy who once lost his girl. Freak-offs as theater. His parties weren't indulgence, they were revenge rituals. In front of mirrors, cameras, A-list witnesses, he displayed his dominance, broadcasting the power he never had as a teen. Every orgy was proof to himself that no one would ever call him punk again. Tapes as insurance. He recorded everything, not just for blackmail, but to keep his humiliation reversed. If anyone mocked him, he had evidence of their own depravity. He stockpiled shame to make sure he was never again the one exposed. Rage at rumors. Any whisper against him, whether true or false, ignited disproportionate rage. Why? Because whispers reminded him of that Detroit block, of neighbors pointing, laughing, saying Willie had taken his girl. The adult mask. On the surface, the Didler crafted the opposite image. He became flamboyant, loud, dripping with chains, silk, and confidence. A mogul, a king, a man who could summon celebrities with a snap of his finger. But beneath the mask, he was still that 16-year-old boy, raw with humiliation. He wore his empire like armor, terrified of the laughter underneath. That's why humiliation, not hatred, was his true weakness. He could survive enemies. He could survive lawsuits. He could survive federal raids. But the sound of people laughing at him, that would crack him wide open. Clinical assessment. If I strip away the street names and the music videos, what remains is a clinical profile. Paranoid narcissism, constant need for control, coupled with deep fear of ridicule. Sexual sadism, derives satisfaction from humiliating partners, not simply from pleasure. Trauma reenactment, compulsively recreates his teenage humiliation, but in reverse. He is now the Willie, taking women from others, proving dominance. Validation, addiction, wealth, fame, sex, power, all tools to drown out the echoes of mockery. He was a boy who once lost everything to laughter. He became a man determined that no one would ever laugh at him again, even if it meant becoming a monster. Conclusion. Marcus Anthony Didler didn't rise because of genius or hustle. He rose because of pain. The soft boy mocked as weak. The teenager humiliated by Big Willie. The laughter of neighbors echoing for years. Every mansion, every freak-off, every tape was just his way of silencing those ghosts. But ghosts don't vanish. They linger. They whisper. And when the world finally turned on him, when the dossier spilled his secrets and the public laughed, the boy inside him resurfaced, terrified, broken, exposed. That's the truth of Marcus Didler. He wasn't a king. He was still that 16-year-old kid in Detroit, desperate to erase the sound of laughter. And that's why he fell. Sequence 4, the dossier drops. I light fires to burn his empire. Dossier spread like wildfire before the inferno. Step 1, planning the leak. After I compiled the dossier, shipment logs, victim testimonies, hotel contracts, visa records, I knew I had to strike where it hurt most. The public's blind faith, his illusion of control. Leaking to the media was risky. FBI protocols, cartel eyes, Didler's own private enforcers. But the dossier wasn't destined for the Bureau. It was for them. Columnist hotlines, A-list bloggers, and investigative journalists hungry for scandal. I curated the release carefully. A tip to a respected crime reporter in Miami Herald, encrypted, unsigned, with just a few tantalizing files attached. A whisper to a celebrity news platform. Generic, suggestive, prompting clicks. Didler's parties weren't what they seemed. A deeper drop to a human trafficking NGO. Real names, dates, flight logs, stored on a secure server with a 48-hour self-destruct timer. Within hours, the first story went live. Music mogul Marcus Didler linked to sex trafficking ring. A week later, a national outlet followed. Is the king of fashion also a trafficker? Step 2, the shock wave. They say sex sells, but sex scandal destroys. The public reaction was instantaneous. Social feeds lit up with outrage. A-listers, who once posted selfies at his parties, now scrubbed their social media, deleting tagged photos. Brands paused collaborations. YouTube channels called for his head. Meanwhile, in the underbelly, victims reached out. Emails from women who slipped through the cracks. One typed, "He wasn't just selling us. He was broken. We were invisible." I archived every message, every location in bed. They gave me leverage. Step 3, FBI momentum. Now the Bureau mobilized. Suddenly, my insider tips became credible leads. They floated phrases like federal RICO investigation and witness protection. My handler pulled me aside. "Aiden, you've stirred the hornet's nest. They're coming." I nodded. That was the point. The louder the sirens, the more attention the government would pay. And attention meant exposure. Agents knocking on shell offices, serving warrants, spawning millions worth of internal audits. Step 4, victim coordination. With Adoria's help, we began coordinating with victims ready to speak publicly. They needed protection, new identities, documents. We filtered through my cartel contacts to procure them safely off the grid. One woman flew from LA to New Zealand under a false passport we provided. Another disappeared into obscurity after giving police testimony. Adoria whispered, "You're saving lives, not just burning villains." It stung with truth. Step 5, Didler's breakdown. Then came the fallout. In his nearly empty Miami mansion, Didler paced like a caged animal. His inner circle abandoned him. Managers gone, lawyers walking out, PR ghosting his calls. His social media accounts, once bursting with glamour, went dark. I tapped into his distress signals through ghosted voicemail logs and secondary sources. He wasn't calculating anymore. He was unraveling. Step 6, cutting the rope. I released more files strategically, leak about the San Diego assault, followed by the trafficking flight logs. Every new drop topped the last. The media circus swelled. At the same time, the cartel sensed weakness. Without Didler's laundering networks feeding them, they grew paranoid. They initiated pressure. But I courted both fear and opportunity, using my leverage to keep them at bay while the feds methodically closed in. Step 7, the edge of execution. Standing in the safe house's mirrored hallway, I watched the news scroll across the TV. He'd lost his kingdom, fortune evaporating, defenses cracked. Adoria appeared behind me. Time to choose your moment. I touched the engraved casing of my pistol. I didn't need to pull the trigger, not yet. Collapse under public ruin was its own execution. Still, I whispered, soon. Because the last scene isn't written yet, and I will decide how it ends.